Ahead of Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn this weekend, there's one key factor that could make all the difference in the outcome of this fight. It's something that we really need to think about, dissect, and try to understand before we make a prediction on the event. It's the weight of the two men, the 160-pound limit, the rehydration clause that's in place. In this video, we're going to be getting into all the nuances and details of the weight limit in this fight, discussing how it will impact each fighter, and trying to figure out what its bearing will be on the outcome of the fight. How much will the weight cut impact Chris Eubank Jr.? How much will being at 160 pounds slow down or speed up Conor Benn? I get into it all in this video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. Guys, if you haven't seen it yet, be sure to check out my tactical game film analysis for this fight. The link will be in the description. It's a long one. It's an hour-long video. If you want to go and find out all about the tactics and tendencies of the two fighters, I've picked out a number of flaws, particularly with Conor Benn, and I think it makes for pretty interesting viewing. And that is one piece of the puzzle when it comes to picking a fight result. I won't make my prediction in this video. My prediction will come in the next video. I will be making my prediction tomorrow. I would love to see the weigh-in first. I may make another one if the weigh-in changes my mind, because weight is such a huge element going into this one. In my mind, there's three major factors ahead of this fight. One is tactics, two is the weight and the physical state of both men, and the third thing is the psychology. We've kind of got into the psychology a lot in the build-up. We had the press conferences with the egg slap. We had the Piers Morgan show where that revealed a lot of things to me about each guy. You can go and check out that video as well. It's on my channel. And now it's time to get into this. It's a real massive talking point going into this fight, and it's something that we need to understand and try and give proper context to, because there's a lot of different sentiments, different statements being thrown around. Eubank's actually a 168 fighter. Conor Benn's been fighting at 154 pounds. I'm not going to leave any stone unturned in this video. I'm going to make sure we analyze those statements and try and put actual context to them and fact check what's being said. So before I get into this one, guys, the last thing you could... Actually, there's two more things you can do. Firstly, please use my link in the description to buy the pay-per-view with DAZN. I get a small cut of the pay-per-view revenue, and it really helps to support my channel. So if you guys can do that for me, I would really, really appreciate it. Doesn't cost you any more or less. It just means I get a little share, and it helps to keep me making videos. So if you want to support the channel, that's a great way you can do it. The other thing that you can do is become a member of the channel. It's something that a few people have done already. And again, it just helps me to keep making content. It helps keep me consistent. And there will be early access on game film analysis videos. When I make a tactical breakdown, I will be releasing them slightly early for members. So get involved with that. As that grows, I will try and do more content for that as well. Maybe try and do some slightly more personal stuff. If people are interested in me as a person, we can do some more chats and things like that. We can do more Q&As and things. Whatever you guys want, really, as members. But if you do want to help support the channel, those are the two things you can really do for me, if you fancy it, if you're up for it. Now, the first thing we should do in this video is establish the facts. Okay, so this is a 160-pound weight limit bout, so both men must weigh no more than 160 pounds. There is also a 10-pound rehydration clause, and as I understand it, that is in place for both men. So both men, the following day, can't weigh any more than 170 pounds on the scales on the morning of the fight. Now, I'm not sure the exact time of that weigh-in. I think it'll be anywhere from sort of 8 to 11 a.m., somewhere in that range. And so that is a factor we also need to consider, the stress of maybe potentially having to make that weight on actual fight day. Now, Conor Benn, obviously a career 147-pound fighter, will be moving up in weight for this fight. People are calling it 2 weight divisions, 1 weight division. I'll get into that in the Conor Benn section, but I really want to start with Chris Eubank Jr., who has been a career 160-pound fighter. So this is a weight he's made many times, but he has never had to do it with a check weight in place. I mean, he has, we'll talk about that, but with it being with a fight the next day, or the same day, he's never actually had to make a check weight before. He's never held a version of the IBF title, which is the only governing body that stipulates you must make a check weight on the day of the fight. But that IBF rehydration clause check weight is actually very instructive for us, because it allows us to look at certain fighters who held IBF titles, and we can kind of see how it affects their performance with and without that rehydration clause. Now, the first thing I really want to get into here is this idea that Eubank Jr. is a 168-pound fighter, because it's something I've heard people sort of casually throw out there. Well, Eubank's really a 168, so he's even a big middleweight. And it's a weight that, at this age, 35 years old, 160 is a difficult cut for him, given that he's typically been a 168 fighter. But I just want to draw your attention to BoxRec here. And as you can see, we've got all of Chris Eubank Jr.'s weights over the years. And it actually makes for quite interesting reading, because In my mind, he was 168 a lot more recently than he actually has been. So it's important to note this. Against Seremeta, he weighed 159 and 3/4. Liam Smith, 159 and a quarter. 159. 160 on the nose. 164 for Wanik Orjawan. I don't even remember that fight, to be honest with you. 161 and a half for Marcus Morrison. 159 and a quarter for Matvey Korobov. And the last time he actually fought at 168, I know that the Wanik fight was 164, so that's some kind of check weight there. But not even as high as 168. It's 4 pounds over 160. But the last time he actually made 168 was in 2019 when he fought James DeGale. That is over 6 years ago. So sure, as you get older, weights get more and more difficult to make, but I think that really is testament to the fact that Eubank Jr. truly always was and always has been a 160-pound fighter. I do think in an ideal world, he'd probably weigh like 165, 164, something like that. I do think it is a tough cut for him. But I also don't think that he is actually a 168-pound fighter, given that he has been at 160 more or less for the last 6 years, more than 6 years. So that's a long time, and I feel that that's worth calling out, to be honest with you. But I want to try and figure out how difficult this weight cut actually is for Eubank Jr. I want to try and work out what he's going to weigh on fight night and what the implications are of that 10-pound rehydration clause are for him. Now, I saw an interview of Eubank Sr. It was, I think it was The Sun, did a panel on this. It had Groves, it had Eubank Sr., it had Harlem Eubank. It was actually very entertaining, and Groves really held his own in there against Eubank Sr., who's obviously extremely opinionated and strong-willed. But Eubank Sr. said something that caught my ear, which was that he said that Eubank Jr. will be weighing about 180 pounds in fight week before he cuts the weight. If anybody knows, it's going to be his dad. His dad will be well aware of what weight Eubank Jr. walks around at, unless he was using it for impact, because he's not a fan of the fight. He's not a fan of the rehydration, dehydration clause. So he may have been doing it for impact, but let's assume that he's telling the truth and he's right. Junior weighs 180 pounds in fight week. If that's the case, a 20-pound cut is a big one, but it's a typical one. I think a lot of fighters cut around 20 pounds of weight for a fight. The big problem is that rehydration clause the next day. So that means you'll be putting on another 10 pounds roughly of water weight after that same day weigh-in. And that's tough. That's tough. If you think 10 pounds is what, like 4 kilos-ish, go in the gym, pick up a 4 kilo weight. It weighs something. It's like a significant amount of weight to not have in your body. So to try and give context to the toll it might take on him, it could be fairly significant. Now, the main reference point we have for this is the IBF rehydration clause and also what Eubank Jr. himself did. With the IBF rehydration clause, the best, most recent and relevant comparison with this is Jerome Boots Ennis. That last performance against Stan Jonas was absolutely fantastic, and it was the first fight in a while where he hasn't had the IBF rehydration clause. And he looked rejuvenated. He looked like a different fighter. Before that, he was still winning his fights, but he was getting hit a lot. He was finding it a bit difficult. He didn't have the legs he normally has. So you can see how that 10-pound check weight was really, really affecting him. However, to caveat that, what I will say is that I heard him say in fight week it was the first time he'd ever had nutritionists for a fight. So potentially that also made a difference to the way he was able to replenish. But for sure, that check weight makes a big difference, not having that there. And so there's a kind of clear comparison there as to how it might affect Eubank Jr. Although I do believe Boots Ennis is probably rehydrating even more than 10 pounds on that day. It may even be 15, 20. Who knows? I mean, he looks huge. He's way bigger than 147. He may be 175. I don't know. But the point is, it's a good example. You can see how much it could deplete you having to make an extra 10-pound check weight on the day. Although one thing I will say is that typically a 147-pounder should be smaller. And so if you think about it, 10 pounds is a larger percentage of your overall body weight, and therefore it's probably more taxing. So for a bigger guy, 10 pounds is a lower lower percentage of your overall body weight. So maybe that makes a difference. I don't know. That's speculative. I said we were going to try and be pernickety in this video, so this is me really trying to get into the nitty-gritty. Now, we know it will affect Eubank. To what degree is really unclear. It's hard to say, but we saw it with the Liam Smith fight. After he made that first weight for the Benn fight that got cancelled, 157 pounds was the weight for that fight. He looked horrendous when he made that weight. He looked so dry. It just brutal. And then I believe for that one, there was also a check weight. And I read somewhere that it was 165 pounds. That's an 8-pound limit that he could only increase by his weight the next day, which is insane. I mean, I think he would have got hurt in that fight potentially. That's dangerous. And look, I've said it many times on this channel. I hate rehydration clauses. I really hate them. But also, I understand why they exist, because you're trying to typically stop weight bullies and divisions from existing. You're trying to get people to make weight in a safe way, but all that happens is people push it as far as they can. But when a guy is very clearly a natural 160-pounder, to then enforce a rehydration clause on them like that. I think it's dangerous and I don't like it. So this one isn't as bad as the first one, but it's still not great. And I do think that first one took something out of him because we saw the way he was stopped in that Liam Smith fight, the first one. Eubank made some mistakes in that fight. He got caught clean without question, which doesn't happen often. But at the same time, I've seen Eubank demonstrate an incredible chin in the past, and it wasn't there in that fight. And I do believe the depletion from that making that weight in the Benn fight had a large part to play. And we've seen it with fighters before. Look at Oscar De La Hoya when he fought Manny Pacquiao. Came down to I think it was 147 for that fight. Maybe it was a catch weight, but the point is he'd been fighting up at 160, I believe, at that time. And to drain himself down to welterweight was just madness, and he got battered. So is there anything Eubank can do about this? Well, some people have said, why doesn't he just take the hit, take a fine? Because I've read Eubank being quoted himself as saying he is specifically being paid a fee to make the rehydration clause. So he actually views it as, I'm getting paid extra money to make that weight rather than I am being fined if I don't make the weight. So if we look at what the reported purse is, got it written down here. So it's a 60-40 split roughly. And Eubank Jr., as I understand it, is making $10 million and Conor Benn is making $8 million. This is USD, is what was reported in the article that I read. And apparently their separate fees being paid to make the rehydration clause is $1 million. Now, there's a very real question here. If you're Eubank Jr., do you just not make the weight? Do you just not bother with that rehydration clause? $1 million is a significant amount of money, but at the same time, would you pay $1 million when you know you're already making 10 guaranteed, or maybe it's 9, to win the fight, to have that legacy win over Conor Benn, to not tarnish your name, to not tarnish your family name? I don't know. I think there's a very real decision to be made there. And if I was him, look, $1 million is a lot of money, but I'd be strongly considering it. What I will say from what I know about Eubank Jr.'s career is he's been all about the money all his career. And the fact he agreed to such ridiculously aggressive terms in the first fight makes me think he'll do it because he wants that money. And as I say, Eubank Jr.'s never really been bothered about world titles. He's always taken the biggest paydays, the lowest risk for the highest reward. And I believe that he will be doing that again here. And I think he will make the weight. But if I was his team, I'd be asking the question. I'd be saying, look, do we want to just pay this fine? Because it's $1 million at the end of the day, and you'll be a different fighter in there. Also, there's a rematch clause, so potentially you get another payday out of it. And then maybe he goes and fights someone like a Canelo afterwards. So on balance, I'd just pay the fine. I would just pay the fine because I think this is the biggest stumbling block for Eubank in this fight. I will make my prediction in the next video, but I have to say that there's a big part of me that's really leaning towards Eubank, and I think this rehydration clause is the biggest problem for me in picking him. And it's really, I'm not just saying this, I'm genuinely questioning my pick because of the rehydration clause. I'm not sure which way it's going to go for me right now, but a lot of things make me lean towards Eubank. Go and check out my tactical analysis if you want to see what I mean in that sense. I still think there's a chance he can win with the rehydration clause, but it really reduces his chances for me. That's why it's in there. That's why they've done it. Now, let's take a look at Conor Benn, because again, there's this narrative going around from people. He's not a 147 fighter anymore. He's a 154-pound fighter. So as you can see here with Conor Benn, I can't call him 154-pounder myself. I know he hasn't made the 147 limit for 3 years nearly. It's almost exactly 3 years to the day. It's just over. Career 147-pound fighter, always weighs around 146, does the weight well, clearly. But if you look here, Peter Dobson fight, they both weighed 150.5 pound, and I do wonder if that's because they weren't sure what the next move was going to be. If it was going to be, we're going to go and do Eubank soon, or if it was going to be, we're going to go back down to 147. That is sort of, hedging your bets. But he's actually only made the 154 limit once against Rodolfo Orozco. So I can't really say he's a 154-pound fighter now, even though he's not made 147 in so long. But the fact that he hasn't made it in so long also leads you to believe that it would be harder for him now because you fall out of the routine and out of the rhythm, and he gets used to being the weight that he is. Now, as I understand it, for that Dobson fight where he weighed in around 150, he rehydrated to just over 170 pounds for the fight. That's 20 pounds increase, which is quite a bit. Which means that in the fight, there will only be about a 10-pound difference between them once everybody's rehydrated properly and everything like that. Which is a lot of weight. It is a significant amount of weight in boxing, but it's also not astronomical. And honestly, a 10-pound cut for Benn with a 10-pound check weight the next day, which is the weight he weighs at anyway when he's fully rehydrated, it's nothing for him. He'll be ready to go. It's basically not even a check weight for him, is it? Let's be honest. And honestly, this is where we talk about performance. Would he want to weigh much more than 170 anyway? I really don't think so. And I think for Conor Benn, we won't know until fight night how he's gone about, adding the extra weight on or what he's decided to do. Has he decided to, put on another 10 pounds of muscle? Is it a case of he actually will be cutting the same as Eubank Jr. and he's tried to really bulk up? If that's the case, you've got to be really careful because the kind of muscle you put on is very important in boxing. And for some guys, it works for them and it suits them. Look at Canelo. He's packed on the muscle. He's packed on the size over the years, and he's more powerful than ever. There's some guys where it just suits them. For most guys, when they bulk up, kind of makes them gas faster. Extra muscle mass can be problematic. Manny Pacquiao was a freak. 8-division champion. It's just like unthinkable. I don't know if it'll ever happen again. It probably won't. But there's so many guys where they move through the weights well, but increased muscle mass is an issue because it burns more energy. It increases lactic acid buildup. There's a whole host of reasons why it might be a problem. So if I'm Conor Benn, I'm probably just looking at it as I just don't have to cut as much weight as I normally do. I'm going to get in there at the weight I normally am. And the thing is, he will have such a good gas tank as a result of it. And he will be able to put an intensity, set a pace on the fight that we probably haven't seen from him before. Because without having to cut that weight, he'll be ridiculously fit and he'll be ridiculously healthy and fresh going into the ring. And that is the leveler here. It really is. I'm assuming he's not gone and bulked up. I don't think he has. I did actually see G-Man made a video a while ago where he sort of said Conor Benn's looking massive, and I'll put that photo here so you can see it if I can find it. He does look huge. He's got that real upside down triangle thing going on where he looks huge, but also lighting is, I think, I don't know. He's always a pretty muscular guy anyway, but I am intrigued to see what he's done with his body composition for this fight. You can kind of go about it a number of different ways. As I say, too much extra muscle mass, and it might be a hindrance because I just think that even if you put the muscle on, he's not going to be able to wrestle with Eubank. He's not going to be able to match Eubank in the clinch because he's naturally so much bigger and stronger. I do think that natural extra size in your frame is kind of unbeatable. I think bulking up to that doesn't really work for most people. Again, though, it depends what kind of muscle you put on, and it works for some guys. And at the same time, maybe Ben goes, do you know what? I'm going to set a ridiculous pace. I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to get powerful as hell. I'm going to set the craziest pace for 6 rounds and just go at him and try and take him out. And that is possible too. The two big questions are, how will he take a shot from a 160 fighter? And can he hurt a 160 fighter? Because Conor Benn's whole style is based around athleticism and power. He's shown a pretty good chin, and we've not really seen him hurt since the Peno fight. And that was a long time ago now. He's almost an unrecognizable fighter from that time. So it'll be really interesting to see him get hit properly. I do think Eubank Jr. will be the biggest puncher he's been in there with by a considerable amount, because whilst Eubank Jr. is not the biggest punching 160-pounder, Ben's been put in there with non-punchers in his division so far. Even the guys he fought in his last 2 weren't punchers, really. I think Dobson has quite a few stoppages, but again, I don't really see him as much of a puncher based on what I saw. So we don't really know what kind of chops Ben has, and I think we're going to find out because I expect Eubank to hit him a couple of times. But I also think Eubank's going to get hit in this fight. His defense isn't perfect by any means. And so we're going to find out just how hard Ben does punch. Based on his last 2 performances, his power isn't really carrying up. But also that could be because of other reasons, because also at welterweight for a long time, his power wasn't really there. And then suddenly he pops. So we don't know what's going to happen in this post-Ped era of Conor Benn. We're going to find out what he's actually got. I really, really hope he's clean in this fight. I will say that. I hope to God he's clean for this fight with all the rehydration stuff. I mean, it would just be, let's just not talk about that. You understand what I'm saying. Anyway, guys, overall, these are my estimations. I think that Ben will be much fitter for the weight. I think he's going to look good. I think he's going to put a little bit of extra weight on, but not too much. I think just enough that he can hit a little bit harder and just be fit as hell. I think that's what he's going to have done for this fight. Think how well fueled he'll be. He'll have eaten so much. He'll be looking well, I reckon, in this fight. Punch resistance-wise, I don't think that will change too much, but he might have a little extra resistance with the extra weight as well. I don't expect him to punch significantly harder, really. I just think, again, it's going to be a case of just cutting a bit less weight. I believe that's what they're going to have done, but again, we'll find out. The biggest question mark for me is Eubank Jr. here, and it's so difficult to answer for you, but based on what happened last time when he made weight for the first fight and then got knocked out by Liam Smith, it could be catastrophic for him, and that's what's making me really question what I'm going to pick tomorrow in the video. And I definitely want, and I might have to react to the weight. I'm just going to see if I've got time, but I might have to depending on what happens, because he might look terrible, and then you're like, oh damn, this could be nasty. This could be a bit of a mess. So we'll see what happens. But guys, get in the comment section below. Let me know, what would you do? Would you just pay the fine? Do you think that Eubank Jr. is going to have enough still to beat Conor Benn? And how do you think Conor Benn's going to look with the extra weight on his body? Guys, don't forget to bang a like on this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. I really appreciate you all being here. And don't forget, if you want to support the channel, please use my link in the description to buy the fight. There's no way this isn't going to be exciting. And I do believe that there's going to be a stoppage in this fight. There's so many vulnerabilities, technically, tactically, in terms of the weight, in terms of moving up in weight, being the smaller man, and in terms of depletion. There's so many holes that someone's got to make something happen in this. I can't see it going the distance. But at the same time, maybe they're just very defensive and neutral and negative. People have said that it could be one of them. I just can't see it. There's so much emotion going into this as well. I do think there's going to be a stoppage in this fight. I think. I might change my mind when I make my prediction tomorrow, but right now I'm thinking that there could be a stop. There could well be a stoppage. Also, the memberships thing, if you want to do that, that'd be awesome. And as I say, we will start to do more content for the members moving forward. But thank you so much for watching this video, guys. And as I always say, on to the next one.